Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and I am the host of this podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I am also a newly minted USA Today bestselling author of the novel Blank. I've created a whole community of book lovers around this podcast, a publishing company, reading retreats, a bookstore, and more. Learn more at zibbymedia.com or follow me on social at Zibby Owens or join the community at Zibby Readers. Lisa Barr is the author of The Goddess of Warsaw, a novel. She has been on this podcast several times, and over the course of the last couple of years has become a very close friend, and I absolutely adore her. She happens to be a huge advocate for Judaism and has been a very vocal force, as have I must say, throughout everything that's happened since October 7th, but she is a true pioneer and warrior. Lisa is the New York Times bestselling author of Woman on Fire, The Unbreakables, and the award-winning historical thriller Fugitive Colors. Her latest historical thriller, The Goddess of Warsaw, just came out. In addition, Lisa served as an editor for the Jerusalem Post, managing editor of Today's Chicago Woman, managing editor of Moment magazine, and as an editor-reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times. Among the highlights of her career, Lisa covered the famous handshake between the late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and the late PLO leader Yasser Arafat and President Bill Clinton at the White House. Lisa has been featured on Good Morning America and Today for her work as an author, journalist, and blogger. In exciting book news, actress Sharon Stone is set to produce and star in the film adaptation of Woman on Fire, which was a New York Times bestseller. Lisa lives in the Chicago area with her husband and 3 daughters, aka Drama Central. By the way, Lisa is going to be one of the 15, maybe even more than 15 authors who will be on panels at an event we're doing in Chicago on May 20th. It's an all-day event from 11 to 7, and you should definitely come. We're partnering with the American Writers Museum and going out to a nice lunch and having cocktail hour and then going to Madison Street Books, and it'll be really fun. Go to zibbymedia.com and look under gatherings and retreats to learn more about that, zibbymedia.com, and get a ticket to come see Lisa in Chicago. I'll be moderating all the panels. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for coming back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books for, the third time now? Third time?
It is the third time. And I was one of your original anthology writers, like way back, way before Zibbyverse.
That's true. Way before the Zibbyverse. You were OG member. I feel like one of the first to come to events here.
Totally. I'm so proud of you.
Oh my gosh. Well, you've been an integral part of the whole thing. And I swear, the day you hit the New York Times list, I was jumping in my kitchen. I was so excited for you. That was just, I don't know. I feel like it happened to me. It was so exciting when it happened to you.
So exciting. And it was, I think you called me, it was like 11:30 at night. And you're like, I'm crying. And it was a big moment. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go to The Goddess of Warsaw for a minute. All right. The Goddess of Warsaw. Please tell everyone what it's about. Your latest book. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So The Goddess of Warsaw is about a World War II assassin, but this was not a woman born an assassin. She was born an actress, a young actress from a prominent family who did not, so to speak, or quote, look Jewish. She actually was blonde, blue-eyed, a beautiful young woman, and really at the beginning of her career. And then the Nazis attacked Poland, and her family, they, with the rest of Warsaw's Jews, which was the biggest Jewish community in the world, was in Poland, were sequestered and trapped inside a ghetto. And so she very quickly had to survive with those who were there that were left and needed to survive. There was no food, there was, medicine, everything that we take for granted was gone. And so she had to use her looks, her appearance, her acting ability, her intelligence in order to get outside of the ghetto and blend in and smuggle. So it began with smuggling, then became She became an assassin, and through twists and turns, she makes her way to America and rises to become Lena Browning. So she went from Bina Blonski to Lena Browning, leaving her past behind, but not really. So basically, she rises so high as a Hollywood actress that she uses her sets in order to continue her war against the Nazis who came to America and were living free and easy and hiding. And she was an assassin. So her job never ended throughout her career. And so it was for me, I literally threw in the whole kitchen sink. Everything I love to write and read, and it was probably the most personal book. As you know, I'm a daughter of a Holocaust survivor. So it was, yeah, very intensive writing this book, for
Oh my
sure.
gosh. Wait, Lisa, can you share? I know because we're involved in all sorts of Jewish advocacy and just like
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
know and we're friends and whatever, but can you share with everybody else your family's history and how this is so personal for you?
So it's crazy, and I'm sure I'm not the only author who says this, but given this book is really a David versus Goliath, Jews versus Nazis, and really centered around the greatest uprising in Jewish history. It's crazy when I was editing this, and I'm going to get to your question,
Yeah.
how eerily, and I started this book over 2 years ago, researching eerily relevant this book is to today's events. And I would read through and literally words and events that were happening right now. It was like 1944 was 1924. And so for me personally, as a daughter of a Holocaust survivor, my dad was 13 years old when he survived with his immediate family, his grandparents and aunts and uncles. Everyone perished in Auschwitz, and his immediate family survived because they were from Poland and they refused to become Russian citizens. The Russians sent them to Siberia, and very much like I'm blanking on the Netflix series that's on right now, but very similar story to what's happening. So they came here and, with nothing, and he rose to become a prominent ophthalmologist and, selling socks on Maxwell Street to put himself through medical school, all the stories. And, my grandma actually, I will always say was my very best friend. So she lost everything, but such a fighter, such a woman filled with joy. And she is the voice in my head. I'm sure you have a voice in your head. She's my voice. And she's the reason I write what I write and fight for what I fight for. And so this book is a little bit of a swan song to her, just, I don't know, that fighter in me. And now more than ever, I feel happy that at least I can go on the road with this book as my book to take to, wherever I go, because my headspace is all over the place right now. And so this, for me personally, this is very meaningful and important. And this is where we're at. It's a new crazy reality that's happening, I think. So
Well, there's nothing like specificity in storytelling to make you
yeah,
feel and understand what other people are going through, right? I mean, you have people, you can feel people, wandering through sewers, or like you can feel and smell, and the way you write is so, place specific. So you're like, oh, wow. And even that you have characters with regular, quote unquote, regular feelings, right? Like, even though people were trying to escape and trying to survive, they still had crushes, they still had longing, and all of that was still part of it. How do you even deal, like, where does that
yes.
all come from? And tell me about that.
Okay, so interesting when I was deep diving into the ghetto, you just picture like people starving, laying dead on the street, just the images of dark, gray, and black. But I mean, the movie Cabaret, this was happening in the ghetto. There were symphonies, there were a cabaret, there were stand-up comedians, there were bars, people were meeting, people were getting dressed up, they were living normal lives. And in fact, I found one of the women that I interviewed who survived the ghetto and who was in her 90s, she came from a very prominent family. And she said her father, until he was taken, in the end, he was giving her French lessons. French lessons. Why would you possibly have French lessons in the ghetto? But the reason is he wanted to give her a vision that she was going to live, a vision of the future, of, that she was going to be part of the world, not trapped in this desolate, disgusting ghetto but that there was going to be a future for her. And she survived 5 concentration camps, had a beautiful family, all of those things. But really, she never forgot the French lessons her father made her, learn. So I think, to your question, people have crushes, people were having sex, people were, girls were, in love with, the boy who was selling whatever, the newspaper. It was just, and they were trying to forge a real life amid hell. And so, I wanted to capture that as well. It's was the reality of what was happening there. And as I wrote the book, there were a lot of things that people will ask me. I mean, I have an author's note that I discuss some of the real life events that were captured in the book. But a lot of people would say, is this even real? Did this happen? And yeah, because as we know, if you survived, it's surviving through extraordinary experiences. It's not anything that's ordinary. Though ordinary people achieved extraordinary experiences of survival. So it was crazy, but it was very fascinating to go deep dive into that part of history.
I mean, looking back, we know that it was a step on the way to sort of mass extermination, but they didn't know that then, right? Imagine we were all taken somewhere. Like, would our thoughts and feelings, would we stop doing work? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. So that's exactly right. So they were told that these trains you were going to a beach town.
Yep.
Like a lot of them thought they were going like vacation,
Yep.
and the Nazis were brilliant at compartmentalizing and keeping it quiet until, because no one survived basically but there were people who escaped, and then the story got out. And that was the really important, having couriers to deliver the message to the world. Unfortunately, very similar to what's going on now, a lot of the world, they were anti-Semitic and they did not care, but there were good people. There were, wonderful, caring Poles who did save a lot of people and did go the extra mile at their own risk. And, it's, I know we've talked about this through different groups, but being this author that I am, a historical fiction or historical suspense writer with a Holocaust type of brand, it's been tough. I mean, there have been review bombings going on, which we've discussed. I had to, and this was very hard for me, I had my launch at my favorite bookstore that I've done over 30 events with, and they canceled another Jewish author. I'm not going to out names or anything like that, but I had to make a decision. How could I, with this book, launch at this bookstore? And I did give them the opportunity to apologize to the community, and it did not happen. So that it's things that you cannot believe. Like, I'm picturing my grandparents and my great grandparents. I'm like, how is this even possible? But it's happening. So, it's tough times, but I think I always say the silver lining for the Jewish world right now is the Jewish world is coming together in ways that we haven't before. So what I'm excited about with this book is that I'm touring in, and not just specifically Jewish book, council or areas, a lot of places that my readers are going to feel, are not going to know my history. So I'm very excited to share this with readers out there.
Do you ever feel scared? Like, are you worried?
I don't feel scared. I get nervous, like I get butterflies, but then once it's like I think you pinpointed it exactly. You had something you posted, and it's that sickening feeling when you know you're about to post something that's going to be very important and resonate with people, and you sort of have that where you can't breathe for a minute, and then you hit send, and then you see that it resonates, and it's like this feeling. So I feel like yes, there could be protesters at various things, but I'm not going to stand down. I mean, me, I'm, kind of a tough chick that way. But I mostly worry for my kids, not for myself, if that makes any sense. But we'll see what happens. But the thing about this book, it really is, there's a universal theme of how, like, what is the fine line between the pursuit of justice and the hunt for revenge.
Mhm.
And it could be anyone or anything. And and just as a person, when someone is paid back, or we have our, like, oh, karma's a bitch, it's like, and then something bad happened to a bad person, and you're like, okay, there's justice. So the question is there an expiration date when justice is done? Is that person who's seeking justice, is there an inner peace that happens? And usually there's not, and so that is sort of explored as well. And the price tag of survival. So if someone is, in a terror attack and someone is not, what is the guilt, the feelings, the price tag of survival and going on? That's explored as well. So there are universal themes that are pretty powerful in the book.
I mean, we're this will air closer to your launch date, but as we're talking, in our group chat, people are posting about the 50 people who have committed suicide, who are part of the survivors of the attacks of October 7th, which just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, how do you glance at your phone, read a thing like that, put the phone down, and then just like, okay, back to emails? Do you know what I mean? It's like the effects of everything today are so far ranging. And a book like yours coming out now is so incredibly important because the survivor effects I mean, this is going to reverberate for generations as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah. It is. It's the world is changed, and the world as we know it is very changed. And obviously there are people who you could say, they say, I can't look at the news. If I want to function during this day, I need to shut it off. Or you have someone like me where I'm checking 4 newspapers an hour just to see. And I also know that that's not totally healthy at all. At all. Because you feel like you have one foot in this world, and your kids are saying, oh my God, I need this new bathing suit, and you're like, oh my God, there's hostages there, whatever it is, where, and yet you want your family and your kids to go on as normal. But I do remember when I was in Jerusalem, and this is when I was a young reporter, and there was a war going on, and my friend who was serving was out, having drinks and having a good time. And I said to him, I said, how can you possibly, like, enjoy your life and do all these things when your friends have died? And he said, they died so I could do this. So I have to do this. I have to go out. I have to dance. I have to sing. I have to have fun, because that's what they lost their lives for, so we could have a normal life. And that just always goes through my head all the time. You have certain voices or things along the way. That's one of them for sure. So as we were saying, like, I'm happy my kids or my family are thinking about normal types of things, even though I'm, like, all over the place.
well, it's like they're still learning French, right? It's the same thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
How to
Exactly.
teach
Vision
them
for the
French.
future. Yeah.
Tell me more about the writing of this book and the research involved. I know you mentioned some first person interviews, but what else did you have to do? And did you go to the ghetto? Have you been to the Warsaw Ghetto?
So I have not been to the Warsaw Ghetto. just I did a deep dive. I read through fabulous books. I did a lot of interviews, and I really, as when we know our story, we sort of know what we need for a story. But I did have, I worked closely with the Illinois Holocaust Museum, and so they gave me great, background and testimonials and piles of stuff. And I'm sort of a geek that way, old school. Like I love all my research books and my, highlighters and my papers and old, like microfilms, all those things that are very old school. So I was sitting at the Holocaust Museum in the library by myself, surrounded literally by the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. And really, there were, 400,000 Jews were in a space like a not even 11 miles space. I mean, we're talking 7 people minimum crammed in one room. And the wealthier people had maybe 3 in a room. Like, even though they lost everything, there was still hierarchies of things that went on. But I surrounded myself in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. And having had, as I said, a family that came from Poland, I had a lot of background. And there are a couple major stories in Jewish history that I've always connected with. And one was Masada, the whole story behind Masada, and Jews who stand strong in the face of hate and evil and persecution. And the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, I always knew, even as I was doing in all my other books, Nazi looted art, that I was going to get to this. This was the one. And, I feel like this is my strongest book. I don't know what's going to be with it, but it is for me. I feel like it says everything. It's who I am as a writer and as a woman and as having my background. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
And you even get in a little bit about aging and what it is to be a woman here, when you have an aging
Yes.
old beauty and like, what is that? I mean, you're really getting it all. We're getting it on all sides here, everything
Right.
you could possibly be worrying about.
Yeah, no, and really like it's like that whole old Hollywood actress still hanging on, but she's got sort of the Margot Robbie actress who's
Yep.
coming to interview her and everything. And they forge later on in the book a beautiful friendship and sort of the mother-daughter situation that each one of them needed.
Yep.
But this old broad, Lena Browning, is going to have the last act. And that's what even when I set out to write this book, I knew that she was going to have the last act, the last word. So, it's always fun when you have a target. I mean, I'm sort of a writer where I am a hybrid of our plotter pantser situation. We always talk about, but that was one plot point that was going to happen for sure.
So I know you are already working with the one and only Sharon Stone on adapting your previous work, but what about this one? Has she taken this up? I mean, she could be this older.
She really, really could. I mean, you can picture her
Yep.
doing this. I think Sharon, interestingly, through COVID, she's taken a huge right turn or left turn, whatever you want to call it, into painting. So she's finding her new like mode of expression, and I think she's in love. So with that, and I'm happy for her. She's the typical Hollywood it girl, and when you age in Hollywood, either they grab you later or they discard you. And so this is a type of woman who will never go down. She will go her way all the way. And so she's funny, she's nice, I like really nice, and very much of a cheerleader, which is you don't always see that, and she really is. So we'll see what happens with that.
It happens. Oh my gosh. What is your next book? You must have something.
So yes. So interestingly, I had a book that I was working on, and this is again before October 7th, and it had to do with hostages. So I kind of had, so I had to put that aside because it's too much.
Yep.
But this one is also, it's just beginning, and it's also World War II, a part of history that even my editor, who's kind of specializes in World War II history, had never really heard of it. And there's art, there's intrigue, there's deception. There's going to be some great passionate scenes, because you got to go war and you got to go passion, put it together. That's kind of, what I enjoy. And so I'll tell you more details once it finalizes.
Okay.
But art is really a big part of it, but a very different angle.
Wow. I know you're so focused and so helpful and so much of just a warrior when it comes to fighting all of the current day anti-Semitism and everything. And often people say, well, like, what can we do to help? Or is there anything we can do? If there are people listening who just their heart is going out to Jewish people, or they don't agree with anti-Semitism, or whatever, is there anything that you want to say to them, for how they can help, aside from buy The Goddess of Warsaw, which is, of course, very helpful. Learning history and all that.
I think, I've used my social media platform to write as some opinion types of pieces, and obviously to stand strong and to fight. But I think most people are against hate. Most people despise what's going on. I mean, we're talking people who are not Jewish, but maybe have Jewish friends, it doesn't matter. But overall, so when you see they are taking a message you write and they are putting it in their own stories and they are supporting it and they're standing up, and even in the smallest way, even if it's just a personal call where I've had people reach out and say, hey, I see what's going on. I'm with you and I'm here for you if you need me. It's any sort of small voice, big voice, helps. And, there's no magical solution to stopping anti-Semitism. And obviously, so many parents are seeing what's going on campuses, and it's disruptive. And, I'm all for freedom of expression, but this is a new level of hate. It's next level hate. And so I think when people are standing up, whether it's to their university president to say, hey, I'm not Jewish, my kid is at your school and I'm seeing what's going on, you need to do more, or something like that. Every small message helps. And reaching out to your Jewish friends, letting them know, hey, we see you, is probably the most important advice right now. Obviously, if we were in a true Holocaust situation, we would need them in a different level. But this right now is, the we see you, we are here for you, we stand against hate, all kinds of hate. And that's really important, I think.
I think so too. Well, it's crazy to do this in mid-April and know this is, by the time this comes out, what will have happened when we're in the midst of attacks, and who knows. So saying a little prayer that by the time the message of your book comes out, things are better, and that works like yours are just so important. And, the fun with which you tell your stories and that little dash of sexiness and whatever, the way you always keep everyone's attention, and that lust and, like you said, passion and pain, interwoven in this delicate, beautiful braid. So kind of like a challah. I'll just throw that out there.
Exactly. No, I just think that no matter what's going on, we have those human needs. And just really briefly, I remember doing research for a book, someone else's book, and they asked me to write a chapter on Rwanda. And I had done some work when I was a reporter, and interviewing a psychiatrist who was dealing with refugees and kids who saw horrible things. And she said, the psychiatrist said to me, she was the most surprised that people weren't talking about the rape of their sister or their anything. They were talking about, that boy doesn't like me, he likes another girl here. And it's the basic human need. And so that's in the book. And I just remember how important that is in times of war, in times of peace. We have love, we have needs for passion, we have needs to feel liked, respected, all those things. And it doesn't change in any society. It's the same thing. And so that universality that message is so important, I think.
Amazing. Lisa, congratulations, the Goddess of Warsaw.
Thank you, Zibby, for all that you do, all that you do for authors, for books, for your friends, your family. It's amazing. And we love you and appreciate you. And I'm so glad that I get to call you friend on top of being a colleague. And I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you love it, please leave a review and follow us on social at Zibby Owens and at Zibby Readers.